Your pastor is probably addicted to pornography. I know that is a very polarizing thing to say, but this video is going to be about the shadow and essentially how leaders, people who are in a position of power or maybe a spiritual teacher, oftentimes are hiding the densest shadows. And a lot of times it's unconscious. They don't even know that it's there. This is why a lot of times you'll hear of stories of priests or pastors where behind the scenes they were pedophiles or participating in some kind of sexual misconduct. And I've seen this firsthand in my life. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christianity type church, and I remember seeing certain elders and pastors and whatnot, and how they always seemed like they had everything together. They always seemed like they had all the answers. They knew the Bible through and through. But more often than not, things would come out of nowhere where they were either abusing their children or sexually behaving in ways that were harmful to others. And this video isn't to judge anybody. It is to shine a light on your own darkness, on my own darkness. Because as Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So this isn't going to be about being perfect. It's not going to be about pointing the finger at anyone else, but to encourage you to look within yourself. And this is also a reminder to myself, because I am also aware, as someone who mentors and coaches other men, that I'm not immune to any of these concepts that I'm going to share with you. So without going too deep into the shadow and shadow work that was coined by Carl Jung, essentially it is the repressed parts of yourself, the parts that we maybe feel ashamed of. So we hide them over time, and a lot of times we even lie to ourselves and say that, oh, this part of me doesn't exist. And you especially know this to the degree of how judgmental you are towards other people. So how do you respond when on the news you hear about someone who did have sexual misconduct or someone who was violent or a convicted criminal of some kind? Do you immediately jump to, oh good, I'm glad they're going to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. I hope they get the fucking death penalty. Fuck him, right? The more dramatic and severe your reaction is, then chances are the denser your own shadow is. What's happening is you are afraid of that behavior. So you point it out in someone else, you judge them, you want them to be punished to the maximum capacity because you don't want to look within yourself. Every kind of heinous act, every kind of sexual misconduct or undesirable behavior, it doesn't even have to be criminal, right? It could be something like a porn addiction. The more we judge others, the more we have been refusing to face the darkness that resides within us. And again, this is why I actually do have compassion for people who are in maybe spiritual leadership positions, because this dynamic creeps up on them. Before they know it, they look around, they feel responsible for a congregation, they have this certain reputation that they need to keep up, whatever kind of front that they have. And the thought of any of their secret struggles being out in the open feels like death to them. This is why a lot of times when people get found out, they end up taking their own lives or committing suicide because it's too much to bear. This persona that they were giving off to the world, all of a sudden it's revealed. The best thing that you can do, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go around announcing what your struggles are, but at least don't lie to yourself. When you are completely honest with yourself, you're also being honest with God. You're being honest with the divine, the universe. You're saying, hey, let's shine a light on these shadows within me. Let's do it sooner rather than later, so that way it doesn't become more and more distorted and then get to a point where I'm doing something that's illegal or harmful to other people. And again, I'll say this is why people like priests, pastors, spiritual leaders, in some ways they're at a disadvantage, because their whole life they've got all these eyes on them and they take on this role of coming across a certain way. And a lot of times the only way to be truly convincing to other people is to convince yourself that you don't have any kind of problem. The best liars in the world are the ones who have first successfully lied to themselves. Because when they lie, they seem so convincing. It's like scary. It's like, how are you so convincing of a liar? but they've in that moment actually believed their own lie. So now they're able to project it outwards, and it's very convincing. So what does this look like for you? What does this look like for me? The earliest stages of sexual distortion starts with the consumption of pornography. I've said this before, but a rite of passage for modern men now is getting to a point where you are totally free of that vice. Because in my generation and even future generations, it's way worse. Kids are getting smartphones when they're like 10 years old and immediately seeing these intense images that really our brains aren't designed to see until later in life. The best thing that any kind of spiritual leader or pastor could probably do is find people that they can confide in without judgment. Other people that understand the concept of unconditional love, that understand the concept of forgiveness and judge not unless you want to be judged. People that can hold space for them where they don't have to be carrying this lie, essentially. So if you're a dude who's addicted to porn, finding a close friend, finding maybe someone in your family that you know has unconditional love for you. Now, I will say it can be tough to find in this day and age because if someone is completely disconnected from their heart, God, spirituality, then they themselves might project their own judgments onto you because they're wrestling with their own things. This is why coaching and mentoring can be so powerful. I work with a lot of high-level entrepreneurs. Some of these guys have families, and they have really, really dark things that they're struggling with. And when we begin working together and unpacking these things, and there's this environment of non-judgment and, dare I say, unconditional love, which is how the divine views every single one of us, that's when healing starts to come in. It's just bringing consistent, non-judging awareness to it. Because yes, there's little actions, little steps that you can take, little disciplines that will be helpful. But at the end of the day, it's consistent awareness of the things that you're struggling with, the areas that you're not perfect, being aware of how much you're judging other people and letting go of that. Being like, okay, I've got this giant log in my eye and I'm pointing out the splinter in someone else's eye. Let me slow my roll. Let me look within myself. Let me be the change that I want to see in the world. But it can be very painful because it takes a degree of humility to face these things because it's not pretty. Sometimes it's very dark. It's very grotesque. It's very distorted and perverted. And a lot of times when people take plant medicine like psilocybin mushrooms or ayahuasca, they have a really disturbing experience because it's revealing to them all of the darkness and distortion that's been inside of them this whole time. And what do? They externalize it. They're like, oh, it was the devil trying to attack me. It's like, brother, that wasn't the devil. And even Yeshua, Jesus Christ, when he was out in the wilderness, quote, wrestling with the devil, what people don't understand is that he wasn't wrestling with an external force. He was wrestling with his own humanity. He was wrestling with his own ego that every single one of us have. So naturally, when you understand the depth of these things, your entire paradigm changes. The way you perceive the world, the way you perceive other people, the way you see yourself will change. And I would say that this is the only way to actually help other people heal. The reason why I can do this healing work, this kind of coaching and mentoring, where I help men go within themselves and unravel some of these dark shadows, is because of the work that I've done on myself. And when I work with clients, it's not the kind of relationship where there's this spiritual hierarchy where I'm like, I'm up here. I know all these things. Let me look down on you and share these things. It's like, hey, brother, here's the hell that I went through. Okay. And here's the things that continue to rear their ugly head as I do my own inner work. And what that does is it gives other people courage to go within and begin to look at these things. So I don't know who needs to hear this. This is, again, another unscripted video. I was taking a walk and I was just thinking about some of the religious and spiritual leaders of the world and how exhausting it must be to have this front of righteousness and togetherness and, you know, to give off this vibe like you're whole. When you have to pretend like you're whole, then you never will be. Because true wholeness comes from a place of brokenness, vulnerability, and self-honesty. Going within, unraveling your own self-deceptions. And when you do that, you're actually becoming naked, in a sense, to the divine. You're like, hey, you see everything. You know every aspect, every facet of reality. So why the fuck am I going to hide anything at all? And when you have that degree of self-honesty, then your ability to help others and heal other people, that ability becomes unlocked. And you're still, maybe you don't have it all together, but you're not pretending anymore. And you can finally see people clearly because you can see yourself clearly. So I hope this gives you something to think about. At the very least, I'll say a rite of passage. If you're struggling with some of these addictions with pornography and whatnot, one of the best things that you can do, brother, is continually bring awareness to it until it dissolves. Because what you resist persists, what you fight, you strengthen, but what you continually look at and bring awareness to will eventually dissolve. I know that sounds too good to be true, but cultivate within yourself the discipline to at least be aware. Don't be on autopilot anymore. You know, if you have this routine of at nighttime on your phone or laptop, just going down this rabbit hole of pornography or like dark content that doesn't really serve you in any way. And again, I can talk about these things because I've been through that whole journey. And it also revealed to me when I was younger and I had these kinds of addictions, really what it was, I was terrible with women also. Like there was a need within me to want to understand and connect with the feminine, how to connect emotionally, spiritually, sexually, all in all those ways. And as I started to work on that, it got easier and easier to release the addiction of pornography. So I hope this helps you. I hope this gives you something to think about. The struggles that men have today are very, very different than they were a couple hundred years ago. So I'm here to shine a light on these things. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts, any questions, if any dots have connected for you. Share this with somebody that you think would benefit from this. I also want to mention that I do offer coaching and mentoring. I tend to work with a lot of entrepreneurs who have the means and financial ability to invest in themselves because it is one-on-one work. And because of that, it's not cheap. During the making of this video right now, I have one slot available. So if you are interested in that, you can click the link below. You can fill out the application. We can potentially hop on a discovery call, see if it's aligned. And if it's a good fit, we can work together. That's all I got for you today. You are loved, you matter, and you've barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of. I'll talk to you soon.